I'm Catherine Austin, and welcome to Living Karma Yoga, a show where we celebrate all that the yoga world has to offer, from the postures to music, mantra, meditation, travel, cooking, and so much more. Yoga for 1 hour just isn't enough in today's busy world, so we'll help you take your yoga off the mat and into your life. I hope you find here many tools to help you live the life you deserve, a life where you can literally vibrate love, joy, fulfillment, and abundance in all forms. Well, today our guest is Susann Spilkin, who's been teaching at Karma for over 11 years and practicing for 20 years and teaching for more than 15 years. She's a certified ERYT 500 yoga teacher and has studied many styles of yoga, yogic philosophy and therapeutics for both the physical body and the emotional body, and is grateful to teach and every teacher who has so graciously shared their experience and wisdom with her. Susann has taught at several studios and has been teaching at Karma again since it's opened 11 years ago. And since 2008, she's been taking yoga out of the studio and into the communities of the Detroit area. Hi, Susann.
Hello.
So great to have you.
It's great to be here.
And that last line of your bio is so profound because you've been doing so much work with your yoga out in the Metro Detroit. So I want to talk about that in a little bit. But let's just start getting to know you because you haven't been on the show yet. And you've been a senior teacher in the area for a long time. And so how about telling us a little bit about your journey? And I met you as we were both students, right?
We were.
And then I went through teacher training, and then you quickly did, and so on.
Actually, my journey started before that. I didn't put it in the bio because it was brief, but it actually impacted me. And it was in the 1970s. And we had small children at home, and my husband and I would get one night out a week, and we would go to a yoga class. Didn't know, at the time it was a Kundalini class, I really didn't know anything about yoga. I didn't know why I was doing it. I didn't know what I was doing, but it impacted me. I loved it. I loved the way it made me feel.
Yep.
And then it sort of, there was a hiatus, and I did the usual route of gym type things and aerobics and swimming and running, and I would be at the gym and getting tighter and tighter and tighter and losing my flexibility.
My story.
I saw a woman who was doing stretches that I recognized and remembered from so many years ago, and I thought, I want some of that. I miss that. I asked her where she was doing this. She told me that was the beginning of the journey that has now never ended. So
I don't even know if I've heard that part of your story.
I don't know that you have. I don't
like
know that
it.
you have. And I would say within 3 months of practicing on a regular basis, that was really all that I needed. And it's been yoga ever since. It really has. And studied many different styles, but the impact on me has never really changed. The thing that I've always been most attracted to and most interested in is how the yoga made me feel.
Right.
And that has translated through every style that I've studied, and I never want to stop studying and growing and learning more, but always it's about the experience.
Well, we grow as teachers because our own practice grows, our consciousness grows, we wake up, we learn more and more and more. You know, we start first like everybody does, where our feet go, where our hands go, but then we go so much deeper into the postures. So how has your journey led you, because today we're going to talk about this beautiful new class we're going to be offering at Karma Yoga, Yoga for Veterans. How did your journey get you there? And you've been also teaching a lot in the community, I know at Freedom House and some other outlets. So kind of explain how you've moved into this dimension of your yoga.
Well, I've always loved my teaching at the yoga studios, and I never want to stop doing that. But I would hear from the students so often the kinds of impact and differences that yoga was making in their lives, and I just would keep thinking, there are so many people who cannot make it to a yoga studio. You know, the circumstances of their lives or finances, whatever it is, it's just not really likely that they're going to come to a yoga studio.
Right.
But the benefits of yoga are fantastic, so I just wanted to find a way, how can I help others? So I started at Haven, which is in Pontiac, and that was a women's shelter. Grew from there. I really, when I look back at it now, wish so much that I had the insight and the training that I have received since, because I could have been so much more effective and so much more helpful. I went from there into DKWIO, which was working with children in the Detroit schools, and it's a program that brings a combination of yoga and nutrition awareness to the kids, young ages, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders.
Right.
And then I started working with Arlene Meadow and her Yoga by Design Foundation, who is so instrumental in helping to bring yoga out into the community. So she makes it possible for yoga teachers to do this. So there was a program, Developing Kids, which is a community after-school program, helping kids really develop skills that will help them succeed. So yoga got incorporated into that.
Fantastic.
And then my heart just melted, because I wound up with Freedom House. And I can't ever imagine myself not being connected to Freedom House. This is a refuge for people who come to this country seeking political asylum, seeking escape from terrors that we cannot even imagine. You know, wars and persecution, torture, a lot of sexual abuse. The circumstances are horrendous. And I have this great privilege of teaching yoga to them. Almost all of them have PTSD.
Wow.
So they don't sleep well, they barely sleep, they have flashbacks, they have night terrors.
Sure.
When I first started teaching, most of them, when they do come for the first several times, are not able even to rest in Shavasana, which is that beautiful resting pose at the end of class, and they're not able to close their eyes. They're constantly looking around, waiting, when is the next terrible thing going to happen? So I had this huge desire to learn more about how I could help them. So I wanted to learn more about PTSD and how yoga can help with PTSD.
And PTSD, of course, is
post-traumatic stress. And it's interesting because it's post-traumatic stress disorder,
right?
But in many circumstances now, the disorder is being dropped.
Oh, good.
And this is actually not at all an unnatural response to these very unnatural circumstances that we get thrown into. And so it's not always fair to label it as a disorder. But nevertheless, that's how most people think of it. They still sort of all rolls together as PTSD.
So this led you to take that mindful yoga training, right, for veterans?
It did. So it was very serendipitous. Yoga conferences will often send out email notifications of upcoming programs. So there was a pre-conference training at a Sedona Yoga Festival, and it was mindful yoga therapy for veterans with PTSD, and I thought, perfect, but I couldn't go. The timing was not right. So I just looked up their website, got more and more information about them. They are supported by Give Back Yoga Foundation that does wonderful, wonderful community outreach things. So I went to Massachusetts and took the training, learned so much. I was inspired and fueled, and I came back, and now I have a program at the Detroit VA Hospital working with veterans with PTSD, and we just are adding now substance use disorder, those with PTSD, to that program. And they want to grow it. They want yoga for pain management. They want more. So we want more teachers trained who can do this work.
Okay, so we'll get to that later about that. The training is coming to this area, which is exciting. Let's talk about trauma and its effects, and how does it hide inside of us, this type of student that would benefit?
Anyone's going to benefit who has been through
life.
Trauma. And these can be short-term traumas or prolonged traumas. The body is so wise. It turns on a whole stream of chemical processes in the body to protect us, to get us ready to protect ourselves. The problem is that when the trauma has ended, the circumstances have ended, the body doesn't turn itself off again. And so this isn't true for everybody, but it is true for, unfortunately, a great many people who have been exposed to any variety of trauma. And so they're left with hypervigilance and hypersensitivity, and they're left with elevated blood pressure, and they're left with shortness of breath and inability to concentrate, and not able to digest food well, and not able to sleep well.
And is this more amplified even in veterans, or can you give some examples of even their types of side effects? they experience?
Very, very similar.
Similar.
The biggest complaint is inability to sleep.
Oh, that's not good. We need to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so many flashbacks, so many times spent either reliving past experiences or worrying that they're continuing or that they're
Right.
going to reoccur, that either they don't leave the house because they're just afraid these things are going to reoccur. They'll disassociate from family because they're just not able to connect anymore. They can't stay present, so they can't really engage and stay connected to family. It's really unfortunate.
Well, it's really controlling their whole life, which is not fair, right? They've done so much service. They want to come home and get back and enjoy their life again.
Yeah, there's something called neural sculpting. And what happens is the brain can change. So the brain does change in response to the trauma. And what yoga helps do is actually re-sculpt the brain so that they can come back into their lives. Yeah.
So how is veterans yoga or trauma-sensitive yoga different from everyday yoga classes? How does it have to be taught different, and what does it look like?
The content is similar. The emphasis is very different. Because of their hypervigilance, because of their hypersensitivity, they need a room that is very safe, very quiet. The teacher actually is quite different in the room than in a regular yoga class. There's very little moving around. The veterans feel much more comfortable if they know what to expect, what's coming next, no surprises. There's enough chaos inside their head and inside their world that we don't add even music into the room, occasionally very, very soft music, but we're trying to keep the environment as safe and as quiet as possible. And then the emphasis, even though the content is similar, the emphasis is on re-enabling them to come back into their body, to come back and have a relationship in their body again, because they really have had to step away because it was too hard to live there.
To feel that much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So a safe environment in which they really can focus on present moment experiences and staying with them, not having to leave, not having to check out.
If they get uncomfortable or emotions come up.
Yeah.
So I think you were telling me that, is there more of an ideal size for the class? Like you prefer it smaller, or?
A small class is nice. Veterans are used to a group. You know, it's their I'm losing the word, but it's that group that they go out with. It's their buddies. It's the group that they can rely on. And it's often a small group. It's 8 or 10 or 12 people. So that's a good size for a group. I mean, it certainly can be smaller. And they like to practice together. That sense of, okay, I've got your back, you've got my back. The teacher has our backs so that it's like she's standing guard, so we can go in and do this work.
And really let go.
And then they just know they can trust each other, so they can be themselves in that space.
And we are looking at programming the class that's going to come into the West Bloomfield studio after the busyness of the day, in the afternoon when there's less people in the studio. Kind of more of its own time.
It's perfect, yeah.
Good. So how does trauma-sensitive yoga help them even more? The type of yoga that's taught, the environment that you were just discussing, when would they expect to see or feel results?
You know, it's pretty remarkable. Often what happens is there's the first 2 or 3 classes, they're not so sure. You know, they're coming to try this yoga thing because they know that they need some help, they want some help, they've tried other things, and they've heard that this might work, and all right, I'll give this a try. And there's a little reluctance.
Sure.
But then I started hearing responses from the students. Within 3-4 weeks, I would hear things like, you know, I have those terrible nightmares. I get up, I sit on the edge of the bed, I do some of that breathing or a few minutes of that meditation, I can go back to sleep.
Shifts the energy.
And this is within 2 or 3 weeks' time that I can start hearing this from them. It's amazing.
Isn't that great?
I had one veteran in class who said to me, I never sit still. He said, I can't sit still. I don't want to sit still because I don't want to feel. I am always on the move. He said, this is the only time that I ever sit still. And this was, again, it doesn't take very long. It doesn't take long.
Well, we know this from the power of yoga because you and I teach it every day, and we can hear from our regular students, I'm sleeping better, I'm eating better, or everything changes quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So, can you describe some of the different practices that might happen in the class? Would they do some breath work? They do some yoga postures? What might be going on in a Veterans for Yoga class?
There is actually more breath work than in a typical yoga class. I mean, our yoga practices always include our breath and always focus on it. Big portion of the class is spent developing and cultivating a familiarity, a comfort level. It's a tool. Basically, it's a toolbox. And the more you practice with any tools, the more readily you can access them and put them to work. And so we repeat. We'll introduce a practice, a breathing practice, and we'll introduce it again and again and again. And usually there's 4 different breathing practices that wind up being taught.
That's great.
And the intention is to calm the nervous system.
For sure.
To have a sense of balance and ease. It creates resiliency. It creates the ability to continue to pay attention, stay present, and breathe through the experiences that you're having. So there's a lot of emphasis, and the breathing practices are actually key to what helps them. They can just call upon it anywhere, anytime that they're being triggered, and that happens often. And they can just pull this out. Nobody even needs to know, you know, and they're just working with their tools. So there's a lot of breath work. There's definitely asana. There's definitely yoga poses. But depending upon who comes, I mean, I actually have a lot of Vietnam veterans. So we have a lot of people who are just need a slower class, need to build their strength slowly, build their flexibility slowly, and that slower pace is actually really welcome because then there's a lot of opportunity to feel. And the main goal is to actually re-embody, come back in, come back
I like that
home,
emphasis.
Come back into your body, feel. So there's a lot of conversation, a lot of description around feeling grounded, feeling rooted,
and
feeling
safe.
supported, feeling safe, and then feeling sensations in your body, through your body. And so the yoga poses are threading the breath and this awareness through them. There's always a meditation.
Nice.
It's at least 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes within every veterans class. And the meditation is also just a fantastic tool for grounding, for staying present, for not checking out, and for acceptance and compassion. Because the most experienced meditator will tell you, your mind wanders.
Right.
So to keep being reminded, it is perfectly fine. You are doing nothing wrong. You are human like all of us. Just accept this. Be grateful that you've noticed this. Come right back to noticing what you're doing in the meditation. So there's always a meditation, and that's also really helpful. We build in occasionally, but not every time, yoga nidra, which is deep yoga sleep. So they're awake, but they have a rest that's equivalent to hours of sleep.
And that's usually like a guided meditation.
It's guided, and it's also very embodying. So you're guided through feeling and paying attention through this body part to this body part to this body part to this body part in a stream of connectivity. And it's one side of the body and it's the other side of the body. And so you're reconnecting to this whole body living.
And it's like you're holding their hand in this cozy place as you're going through. It's okay to connect with the body again. That's powerful.
And also part of the yoga nidra that goes with this particular practice also has to do with positive images, beautiful, not beautiful like flowery, things that you like. So you're called upon to have recollections of pleasurable moments and
Right.
things that you enjoy doing, because then what happens is you tie this link between being in your body and having these positive memories.
Reconnecting the dots.
Yeah, so it's...
And then they'll have relaxation, right, as
there's
well.
relaxation, and there's also always, at the end of every class, a moment of gratitude.
Oh, nice.
And that's an interesting thing, because you think you're stuck in this, you know,
Right.
not so great place. What do you have to be grateful for? But when you ask that question and you tell them this could be the smallest, tiniest little thing, something, there's always something today in this moment
Yep.
that you can be grateful for. And when that happens, there's this connection to their heart again.
There's nothing like a gratitude list.
And they leave.
It shifts you completely.
It's so true. And then they leave connected to their hearts.
And before we get in, I want you to talk about the training that's coming up for teachers, for veterans, for yoga for veterans. The class is about an hour 15 minutes long.
The veterans class?
Yeah.
We try to schedule an hour and a half, because as we slowly build, we grow. We can lengthen the breathing practices. We can add more of the yoga poses in. So it may begin at around an hour, but it winds up pretty quickly being an hour and a half, leaving that time for meditation, for relaxation. It goes by actually very quickly.
And obviously it's for all body types, any limitations, injuries. I'm sure you were all trained in how to help everybody.
Right.
Somebody can sit in a chair, somebody can do yoga on the floor, whatever.
Right. Somebody can come and sit in a chair, and even if they're not able to move,
Right.
they can come and do the breathing practices with us, do the meditation practice with us, be in this environment, which in and of itself is healing. There with other people who understand what they're going through. They all go through this together. They are reconnecting, which is a really powerful tool in and of itself. And then if you want to do yoga poses in the chair, you can. Many people will find they can work on the floor without any problem. The floor is really supportive, so if you can get down on the floor, you can do these poses.
Okay.
You've got the wall to support you. So.
Do you teach alone or do you have assistants?
Actually, I teach alone. If we find that we're going to have a lot of veterans that need assistance, once our mindful yoga therapy training is done and we have more teachers who are trained in this technique, then we can have some assistance. But we have to be very mindful of that, because the teacher actually doesn't move around the room in this class.
We want to keep that environment.
You know, if they are fortunate enough to have been able to close their eyes, for instance, and then a voice is suddenly moving around the room, that can be very triggering. So we have to be really careful with having extra people in the room, that they're also very mindful. And there's a lot of preparation with the veterans. We tell them everything we're going to be doing that day, and then we tell them as we're doing it and what will be coming next and how long we'll be doing it. And I'll tell them sometimes if they're in, for instance, on their back doing a pose, and I transition to sitting up while I'm talking to them, I'll just alert them. You're going to hear my voice change now, you know, and I'm going to be sitting up, but you're going to continue to do this. So we're really nurturing. We're really nurturing their nervous system.
Okay, so we don't want to make sure we miss this, because coming up April 24th through the 26th is the same training you took.
Yes.
We're bringing it to the area, to West Bloomfield, to our new location after we open. And so tell us about the training, Mindful Yoga Therapy Teacher Training, again, April 24th through the 26th.
I am so happy that this is coming here, because the program, the veterans class that we're going to start at Karma, I would love to see the community start all over the city, all over the metropolitan area, all over the state, start to bring this as an offering back, as a thank you to our veterans. But you really need a specific training. It really is different.
How many is this open to? How many teachers? And they have to be RYT teachers, registered yoga teachers, right?
Or you can be just enrolled in teacher training presently.
And then you can take this course.
It's a 15-hour course.
15 hours.
You get 15 hours of continuing education credits, which is nice. And you're going to learn a tremendous amount. This is an empirically supported, clinically tested, if you will, program that's in over 45 VA hospitals now.
Oh, wow.
So,
How many applicants are we taking in that we could fit? about?
well, Karma Yoga has a nice sized room.
Right.
So there's not a limit to how many
Okay.
can come.
Okay, and you definitely want to pre-register now.
You
We're
definitely-
taking registrations now, so you can call Karma Yoga. You can also see the flyer on our Facebook pages, our website.
And the registration, then you'll get linked to Yoga by Design Foundation.
Right.
That's sponsoring and bringing it in,
Okay.
and Karma's hosting it. So it's going to be great. The training is a lot of excellent information about the nervous system and how it behaves in trauma.
So every yoga teacher will benefit from that.
I guarantee you every one of us has students in our
Yeah.
classroom that has been through trauma that we are
Right.
not aware of.
Exactly.
And Susann Manafort, who teaches this, she's actually the co-founder. She co-authored the book that every person enrolled will get, and she's their lead teacher.
Oh.
And the first thing she said to us was, this has changed how she teaches all of her classes. And it's true. I
Sure.
find myself
Of
being
course it
much
would.
more
Sensitive.
sensitive and much more, I think I've always been interested in grounding and connecting to the body, but really understanding the importance of that and taking the time to feeling. So you'll learn a great deal about the nervous system, which is great, a great deal about trauma, how the body
Okay.
responds, and then a lot about veterans culture, because it's very different and it's useful. You'll learn to recognize, oh, it's not so wonderful to say things that we would ordinarily say in a class,
Right.
like surrender.
Right,
You know, I
right.
mean, there are some words
Not
that there
good.
are better words to choose.
So you brought a poem with us,
I
and I'd
did.
love you to read that because we have to wrap it up. So
Okay, I would love this. Let me share this with you. And it's not as though in every veterans class we would be reading a poem, but this might appeal to some of the teachers out there that can get an insight into what the veterans might be feeling and how we can help them.
Okay.
So this is called Birthright, and it's by Dana Folds, who is one of my favorite yogi poets. It says, despite illness of body or mind, in spite of blinding despair or habitual belief, who you are is whole. Let nothing keep you separate from the truth. The soul, illumined from within, longs to be known for what it is. Undying, untouched by fire or the storms of life, there is a place inside where stillness and abiding peace reside. You can ride the breath to go there. Despite doubt or hopeless turns of mind, you are not broken. Spirit surrounds, embraces, fills you from the inside out. Release everything that isn't your true nature. What's left? The fullness, light and shadow. Claim all that is your birthright.
thanks, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us today. Please get this information for the Mindful Yoga Therapy Teacher Training at karma-yoga.net. Namaste.